Hey there folks, Rel here. In the background you'll see some gameplay from PlanetSide 2 as I share some thoughts on better gaming. Today we'll be talking about skill in a video game and possibly how you can identify what types of player skills you possess and how to improve upon what you're deficient in. That said, what is skill? When you hear someone say, wow, that weapon takes no skill to use, what do they actually mean? Does it mean that the other person doesn't need to aim well, or the gun is too powerful, or really are you just upset that you died without getting a chance to fight back? Because if that's the case, how skillful are you for not avoiding an encounter which you were unprepared to deal with? In PlanetSide 2 you can die in 100 different ways at any given time because there are just so many players and we can't always expect everything that's coming. But if you're fighting in a small base, do I have no skill for choosing an SMG or a shotgun? Or are you making the mistake of using a medium to long range weapon where it isn't most effective? Skill, in short, is a player's ability to understand and take advantage of the game and its mechanics, but it goes well beyond that. When I do a review, I usually talk about skill and aim as two separate entities, but that's really just to keep things extremely simple. And it's easy to explain and easy to understand. If I were to break that down a little bit further, I'd put them in three major elements, three broad categories. The first is physical skill, which comes down to hand-eye coordination, reaction times, being able to execute key presses without error, among many other things. Technical skill, which is based around your knowledge of the game and the ability to choose weapons fitting the situation and take advantage of the game's mechanics as a whole. And mental skill, which is your ability to react instinctively to situations or understand what your enemy is thinking or understand what they think you'll be thinking. And to elaborate, holding down the trigger when you should be bursting your weapon, or not noticing or reacting to an enemy who just walked right past you, or not being able to put your crosshair on the target while they're moving, those are examples of low physical skill. Choosing the wrong weapon for the situation, or not knowing how to manipulate your directional influence while in the air, or not knowing how many rockets it's going to take to bring down the enemy's tank from your current angle, those are examples of low technical skill. If you're not taking cover in a stand-up fight, even though you have every opportunity to do so, or if you run into a room of enemies head first instead of flanking them, or if you're being baited into proximity mines or C4, that's low mental skill. It is important to note though that these branches all overlap to some degree and we rarely stay at the same level. I'm sure you've had good days where you're just shredding people left and right, and other days where you feel like throwing your computer out the window. But try to figure out where you stand as a player on average, because the purpose of this video is not only to explain what skill is, which we've just gone over, but to also try to help you improve. Now, I never claim to be an amazing player. I don't. If you've been watching my videos for a long time, that's something that doesn't come up. I do think that I am above average, and that's all I'm really willing to admit. I have decent physical skill, good technical knowledge obviously because I make videos about PlanetSide 2 all day long, and I like to think that I have a really good mental game. When we die in a way that we feel is unfair, it's easy to get caught up in blaming something else. This is overpowered or that is overpowered, and that's not to say that everything is perfectly balanced, because it's not. And it has a lot to do with what skill level something is actually balanced around as well, which we're not going to get into. But when I hear the bickering back and forth about which faction is more powerful than another, I just laugh and I lose a little bit of hope in humanity because people are always looking for something to blame without actually taking the time to think about what they are doing wrong. If you're blaming a weapon or the game for your death and refuse to possibly consider that there's something you can be doing to fix it or something you are doing wrong, then you're part of what's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Now, the Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias in which unskilled individuals suffer from illusory superiority, mistakenly rating their ability much higher than average. When you see people on American Idol who just cannot sing to save their life, and you know they can't sing, and everybody else knows they can't sing, and the judges tell them that they cannot sing, but still they somehow hold on to that delusion that judges and everyone else do not know what they're talking about. Yeah, that's the Dunning-Kruger effect in action. As a part of the Dunning-Kruger effect, according to Wikipedia, incompetent people will tend to overestimate their own skill level, fail to recognize genuine skill in others, fail to recognize the extremity of their inadequacy, but they will recognize and acknowledge their own previous lack of skill if they are exposed to training for that skill.
I require more batteries.
So if you suck and you know you suck, or if you're just not that great, this is how you can improve. But if you think you're the best and that everyone else either sucks or is overpowered, then please post a comment below so we can all laugh at you. Getting better at a game, your job, or even life really comes down to two things: understanding the problem and then working on it. I wish I could just give you a too long didn't watch and just say practice, practice, practice. But that's really not the case. A lot of people think that they can get better at the game just by playing the game. And while that works to a certain degree, you're also going to plateau. Every time you die, ask yourself, what could I have done better? That way you can break down your problems more specifically. If I find myself thinking like, man, I wish I could have put more bullets on that guy, then he would have died and I would have lived, you break that down and it comes down to your aim. So if you want to improve on your aim, then you want to use a weapon that rewards you for aiming well and punishes you when you don't. So pull a sniper rifle, pull a pistol, pull a semi-automatic weapon, and use that because it's going to force you to aim well, which is then going to spread as a skill to your other weapons. Because you aren't just getting better at a particular weapon, you're getting better at your aim, better at the physical aspect of skill. If you get picked off by a harasser with a halberd and you're thinking to yourself, how much damage does that even do? How do I deal with it? You go to YouTube and you watch a video about the halberd. You find out what other people think about how to deal with them, find out their strengths or weaknesses, you find out how to avoid harassers in general or juke their aim, you find out how many shots you can take before you get blown up by one. That's technical skill. Mental skill, on the other hand, is a lot more tricky because you're dealing with people more, which can be unpredictable. But you can learn about how the brain works, which is one facet of that mental skill. For example, the average person has an expected reaction time of 200 milliseconds. Now click the annotation in the middle of the screen. That's kind of funny, right? How long did it take you to click the middle of the screen? An unexpected reaction time hovers around half a second or so. So you factor that reaction time in with your latency to the server, and I can usually think that I have upwards of a second to deal with people who aren't expecting something. If someone is camping the entrance to a control point, I want to either flashbang or concuss before I run through the door, because I know that they are going to lay into me as soon as I get into their sights, and that I am not going to be able to react to them as quickly because I don't know exactly where they are. On the other hand, if I want to run from cover to cover, I know that the enemy isn't going to expect me to just start hauling balls in the middle of an open field toward a doorway because they are too busy farming the easy certs. So yeah, they're going to see me, but I know that I have about a second of time where I can just run without worrying about throwing my shield on, because it's going to take them a little bit to process the information, then key in on me, and then pull the trigger.
This area is...
I know that was probably more than you care to know and maybe sounded a little bit convoluted, but the long story short is that as far as the mental aspect is concerned, you just need to learn more about how people react to certain situations, how you react to things, and how to exploit the way that our brain works.
Move out, soldier!
And the reason that this video came about at all is because I see enough people making videos about why something is overpowered when there's no real logic to back it up. It's just a feeling that they have because they're frustrated about what's happening to them and they aren't sure how to deal with it. So hopefully somebody will find this video useful and maybe take the time to question their own abilities and improve upon them. If this video has been interesting or helpful, please feel free to like, subscribe, and tell your friends about the channel. And if you'd like to share what you're currently working on to improve your own gameplay, or if you have any specific questions or advice, please feel free to leave a comment or video response below. Thanks very much, folks. We're all signing off.